As we get into it, make sure everybody's recording. That's the first rule in doing a podcast. Make sure everybody is recording, because at the end of it, you go, oh, Woody, you forgot to hit record. Darren Millard back in the saddle here, along with Kevin Woodley and David Hutchison. It's actually me. I've forgot to hit the record button, and David Hutchison has forgot to hit the record button a couple of times. But Woody is the guy that we like to bug so much. How was last week? I'm sorry I missed it. I was longing for you guys. And out of it, we get some great news regarding the future and the completion of a Hall of Fame career in Henrik Lundqvist. I don't think anybody's surprised by this, but it gives us an opportunity to reflect on what happened, Hutch. I mean, this is a guy that is just late round pick to Hall of Famer.
That was like a Woody-esque intro you just did there, Darren.
Thank you.
You went through about seven different thoughts that I have to figure out which one I'm supposed to reply to. Do we go like with...
Well, it was 14 days since I've talked to you, so I got a lot going on up here.
So last week was awesome, but thank God you're in the driver's seat now, because it was complete and utter confusion for Woody and me. What else did I forget to respond to there? It's so hard. I take notes with Woody. I'm never ready for you to take notes. Hank. Oh, that guy in New York, Henrik Lundqvist.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely unbelievable. I think we're all just a little bit sad here now to see that go, because I mean, what an incredible career. What a great innovator. Woody has actually got a series of articles that we're rolling out over at In Goal, where we're sort of looking back at his experiences with Hank over the years. And the most recent one was how he's inspired a generation of Swedish netminders. There's one coming up on his innovations in equipment. Darren, what's the biggest innovation in equipment that we all have with us now?
Dangler.
He did have a dangler, but what one's he? Every company's adopted this now. It's not fair to put you on the spot, is it?
What is it?
Well, hold on.
It's
we need like some
Jeopardy
music in the background here. Come on.
I know,
I'm outthinking myself here. Now I'm panicking, and I'm outthinking myself.
It literally has his name. It's the Lundqvist.
Oh, the Lundqvist
there
loop.
You go.
Yeah. There we are. I was thinking protection, but yeah, the Lundqvist loop.
I actually was
first guy.
What's that? Yeah, I was actually at a camp years ago. I might have told this story on here before, because I've only got 5 stories, but I was at a camp years ago, probably almost a decade ago, and I saw a kid who'd actually made his own Lundqvist loop on a pair of skates.
I did.
Did you?
Yep.
That's
with skate laces, tied it in, everything. It worked.
Well, he actually made the full-on tab. Just like this. It was impressive. I said, well, where did you learn about that? He said, well, Henrik Lundqvist does it. I'm like, cool, great. Where did you learn about that? In Goal magazine. So that would have been an article that Woody wrote. So great job, Woody. But come on, bud, you're the one who spent all the time in the locker room with us. Give us the download, Woody.
You know, it's funny. I'm trying to remember, like, did we really have that first? Like, I don't want to turn this into a backpeding session for us, but that whole, like, that loop and identifying it and writing a story on it, because that's not the only time we've had somebody say, like, and this goes back quite a ways, that they saw it there first, like back in our old Page Turner magazine. And like, to me, that's one. The impact he had with the Bauer equipment, like, as remember when Odin was originally designed as sort of a breakout project for the company, like, see what you can do with new technologies, kind of like a class group assignment to see what if they went outside the box, could they come up with. The original plan was to try and deaden rebounds, and it was in testing with Hank when the new materials produced active rebounds. It was Lundqvist that said, no, this is good. I like this. So he kind of goes hand in hand with that Bauer evolution, and look at how many companies have been chasing that since. So I think equipment, we've got that coming out. The way he played, I think a lot of people in the first article touched on this. A lot of people just assumed that Henrik came over with the style that we came to sort of associate with him here. The inside out, Benoit Allaire, play deep, goal line out approach. And that's not true. And obviously we talked to Allaire and Lundqvist about this years and years ago. Like, that was a training camp adjustment. First training camp, first month of the season. He went from being a guy in Sweden and had massive success in Sweden, playing out around and beyond the edge of his crease with a little backwards flow, to a guy who is now synonymous with that Allaire style of goaltending and took it to an extreme. And he was able to do that in one preseason, one sort of month of the season, and be comfortable. And I'll never forget the quote from Benoit Allaire. We reran it in the first tribute. That's when he knew that Lundqvist would be great, that early in the process, because of how quickly he adopted a new concept and brought it into his game. I think the comparison that he made was Tiger Woods changing a swing. Like, the greats can do this. And so we've been familiar with Hank since the early going. He's been good to us over the years. As annoying as I can be when guys visit Vancouver, he always made time, pulled us into the locker room to explain his grip on his stick. We have that video in our pro gear section at InGoal. I think we ran it a year and a half ago, but members will remember that, where he sort of explained why he had that that unique paddle grip at the top and the way he held it. He was always just really, he was good with the media in general, but he's always really good to us. Answered emails earlier in his career, gave us an email address, and frankly, as big as he got as a superstar, would still sort of respond. Didn't send them very often in the latter years, but would still respond. So just a ton of respect for him as a competitor. I think my favorite Lundqvist story, though, was that last practice in Vancouver 2019, last trip through where he was playing. They played the night before in Edmonton. He didn't start, but a heavily optional skate the next morning. I mean, like 7 or 8 guys out. And of course, he was one of them. First one out, along with Georgiev. Last one off the ice, breakaways till the end, battling on every puck. And I think Marty Biron said it in that first tribute piece. That's what made him great. That compete level and that work ethic. He made everything in life look easy because he worked hard so that it's, it didn't come easy. He just worked so hard that he made it look easy. So many different tangents with him, so many different memories. But I think that's the one lasting impression when you talk to his playing partners, is that desire, that passion, and that work ethic that he brought to the rink every single day.
I love that he turned you into a gear rep one day.
Oh yeah, have we told that story on the air?
I don't think so.
Hopefully we're not going to get in trouble for this.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. Well, okay, so this was I can't remember what year this was. It's a while back, and they came into town, and Henrik, like I said, he was meticulous on his equipment, and we'll have that last article in the series coming up this week. Inside edge high with the sharpening, the Lundqvist loop, all the different things he developed. But he had the glove on inside the blocker, the little black glove. Everything would be taped up. Well, anyways, he comes into town one day. It was after practices, and he's wearing a really old, lot of modifications to it. It was a Vaughn, I think it was a V3 chest protector. And even though he was a Bauer guy, that was the one piece that I don't think ever switched, unless I missed it in the last year or two. But he sort of stayed in that Vaughn chest protector. And anyways, the one he was in, man, it looked beat up and old. And you could see he was showing off some arm bruises, and he was feeling it in that thing. And we had just tested the new Vaughn V6 carbon fiber. This is back when we were working with Vaughn, back before they skipped on a bill and we stopped working with them. But we were testing their gear regularly, but because Henrik wasn't a Vaughn athlete, because he was a Bauer guy, like, we actually had this new Vaughn chest protector before anyone else. And I had it back home, and this is like the practice, and we're talking about it, and I asked him if he's seen it. Well, no, he hasn't, because the Vaughn rep's not going to bring it to him, right? He's a Bauer guy. So I asked, like, hey, would you like to check it out? And so I might have even been a morning skate. And he says, yeah, I'll check it out. So I come back, I actually had it in the press box with me, go down to the locker room after the game. I think I had to go home and get it in between morning skate and game day. Bring it down post game. He does his media interview. I just kind of set it down on the side, talks to me for a bit. I'm like, hey, I brought that. He takes it in with the equipment manager into the stick room. I go in talking, going over some of the features that Vaughn had shared with us, and we tested it and we liked it. And then the coach, I want to say was it AV at the time? Was he already in New York? Coach is talking in the hallway. I got to do my day job. So I go out into the hallway. I said, I'll be back in 10 minutes, whatever. And because I can't leave it with you. I got to take it back. I come back in and they've got it. He's wearing it. He's trying, flexing. He's doing all these things. I get a text the next morning, ordered 3. They ordered 3 the next morning. And so there you go. My one stint as a gear rep was for a company that owes us money. There you go. Ironic how that works out.
But you made the sale.
I made the sale. More importantly, I just was trying to help a goalie that, we had this piece of equipment. He hadn't been showing it, and you could tell that he needed something new. And so I'm sure they tweaked it and modified it and did all kinds of things. But I inadvertently played a role in Henrik Lundqvist going from a V3 to a V6 Pro Carbon model.
Hey, we have a great conversation coming up in our feature interview with Sebastien Cossa, the first goaltender drafted in this year's NHL draft. Kurtis Mucha is his goalie coach. It's a 2-on-1 interview today. We're going to dive into that again. It's a great discussion with Sebastien and Kurtis in the Sense Arena VR feature interview. But this is the In Goal Radio podcast brought to you by Source for Sports, the Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com. Our gear segment will deal with Bauer in just a little bit. So that's a great tie-in with Henrik Lundqvist. We got a lot of memories about Henrik, though. You mentioned the rebounds, like the promo for that line was him trying to kick the puck all the way down the ice after a rebound. Not really kick, but send the puck all the way down. It was half promo, half fun out of it. And I'm not even sure it was meant to be a promo at the time. It was just they were out there goofing around, and it ended up being pretty cool. I'd never seen anything like it at the time. Yeah,
trying to take that rebound off that active rebound off the Odin pad and have it go in the net at the far end. Absolutely. It's that's a fun one. And I think that relationship with Bauer, I think you're right, Darren. I'm not sure that was necessarily originally intended to be an ad. I'd have to ask them, but my sense of his relationship with that company and the passion he had for the equipment and how into it he was into his gear is that just would have been part of the natural back and forth, and that, made its way into their product line. I mean, he ended up switching on everything eventually. We had the article where he finally went to from a foam core to 2X Pro stick a couple of years ago, because they, that 2X Pro stick was we've had that in the review. One of the ones that sort of captured that foam core feeling better than most, and it was enough to switch him. And yet the glove, right? Had that practice glove that stayed nice and open for all those years and wore it in games for so long. Finally got one that closed, but that's the last piece that didn't sort of get modernized before he retired. It was a little bit more of an old school glove with a 2-piece cuff. So just, you're right. Just a total gearhead. And, it's funny. We talk about me acting as a inadvertent gear rep for one day. What I should have done was I should have brought him to the hockey shop.
Yes.
Because I have a funny feeling that Henrik Lundqvist would have loved it there. Not just because his picture was about 10 feet high on the wall for years, on the stairwell down, but just because that's the type of passion he has for gear. He is a guy, he would have pulled a Woody. He would have tried on all the gloves. He would have tried the equipment. He would have tinkered with new things. He would have talked equipment like he did with us in the locker room with Cam and his crew for hours. Now, as much as we like to go there and shop and buy our latest gear, it's those little innovations, little accessories, and the padded shirt we're going to talk about is one that Lundqvist wore, one that's been hard to get for years since, but they've got it at the hockey shop because the hockey shop always makes sure they've got those little pieces of equipment to help you get better. And when you go in there and you talk to Cam and you talk to his staff, they play the game. They approach the position the same way Henrik does, with that always looking for something new, the latest and the greatest. Henrik has a paddle protector that goes over late in his career. I think he was using the paddle wedge. Well, they don't have the paddle wedge, but they've got the goalie block. They always have those little tidbits in there. So as much as we like to talk about the latest gear, the new lines, and we'll have more next week with the new Brian's Genetic 5 coming out, it really is sometimes about the accessories, how to set up that gear, much like Henrik Lundqvist, so you can find something that works for your game. There's no better place to do it than to talk to the guys at the hockey shop, thehockeyshop.com. Make sure you check out the website, hit them up by an email if you've got any questions. They'll find the set that works for you, not just the set that they have on the wall, and they'll make sure they'll help you set it up so it works for your game.
A couple of more little Henrik Lundqvist notes coming up after the gear segment as we send you over to Source for Sports, the Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com, Cam and Company talking undergarments. And please, this is not an endorsement of padding your undergarments. All right, in this segment.
Welcome back to the Hockey Shop, Source for Sports. Folks, we're down here in goalie utopia where Cam has decided that the, you know those little Bauer footballs that they put inside of the gloves when you get a new Bauer glove? It's always kind of cool, you know, sort of the glove wraps around it, helps form the palm. I guess Cam figured I needed a little bicep help, so we inserted a couple in the undergarments. The undergarments are what we're talking about. Cam's got the leggings on. I might go find something hard and bang on his knees. I've got the top piece on. The beauty is, this means they've got them back in stock. For the longest time, these were tough to find. I've got one of the original sets with the yellow padding. It's been 3 years now. It's being held together by duct tape and baling wire, as they say, but I still need it. So the fact you've got this now back on sale at the Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com, is very exciting to me, and it's going to be exciting to a lot of the goaltenders out there who have been looking for it. There's not much to sort of say here, Cam, but walk me through. There are a few changes in this one compared to the other ones. Well, I removed my right bicep. You walk me through.
So, yes, these elite padded garments are here in the shop. Limited offering. Get them while you still can. They are quite difficult and still fairly exclusive to get a hold of, to be honest. Big highlights, definitely the knee padding itself. Changed from those older Bauer padded garments that you saw before. Used to be the pour-on, now it's their FlexOrb material, although it is basically the same chemical makeup in terms of for foam-wise. Still a soft density foam to the touch, but upon impact becomes rigid and realigns to create that impact protection. Definitely not something that I would say is like a replacement for knee pads, but it's a great complement to a set of knee pads as well. If you're looking for a little bit of extra padding as you are dropping down into that butterfly, this just gives you a little bit more of that absorption, especially for the impact on your knees.
It looks like they've removed the padding on the inside of the thighs that used to be there.
Correct. I mean, your pants are really covering a lot of that. Plus, you're getting a lot of double up in terms of depending on the knee pad that you have as well.
But it also looks like there's a lot more wrap in the knee pad, whereas I know that was what you really had to position the old ones and make sure it was set up as sort of like two sections. This one looks like it really wraps around that knee nicely. Folks, it helps. It's not about sort of protecting you from pucks, although it wouldn't hurt. As Cam said, you probably still have another knee pad over top of it. It's more about that drop impact and absorbing some of that impact, preventing some of that from transferring up into your knees, avoiding a little wear and tear, making it a little more comfortable. But to be honest with you, like I love it there. I can't live without it here. And we do, you know, a little bit, we get questions every once in a while at InGoal. Do some consulting with some coaches. Every once in a while, they'll have a young goalie or a junior goalie that is having problems with, you know, feeling pucks in the ribs. I know a lot of you out there still like to wear chest protectors that are super mobile, maybe slide towards the mobility side and less on the protective side. We had a client moving into NAHL this year that was feeling, he had an older Vaughn chest protector that he loved, but he was feeling a lot of shots in the ribs. First thing I did was told him to find one of these. This extra layer of protection around the rib cage really helps. Up around the collarbone as well. That can be the difference between a bruise and a break. Really like the protection here. And then it's got, you know, the pants have spots for your socks. It's got a nice, I don't know if it's a wicking material, but all I know is it seems to take the sweat off. Like it's a really good undergarment anyways. And then when you add I guess it's not pour-on anymore, but the pour-on style, the FlexOrb impact, this stuff is gold. I will go get something hard and bang it off Cam's shin pads here or knees to show you that you can't actually feel. It really does double the impact. So the fact you've got it back in the store, Cam, tell them where they can get a hold of you and where they can get more information about how to buy one of these.
You can give me a call at 604-589-8299 or 1-800-567-7790 or www.thehockeyshop.com.
Oh, I missed.
Oh my God.
It doesn't actually hurt except when I missed. Right?
I'm out.
check them out at thehockeyshop.com. They've got this Bauer protective undergarment in stock. What a softie. He's totally fine over there. This stuff really does work.
It was a scramble when this came across the email and the text that we were doing the undergarments and the padded undergarments for the gear segment this week with Cam and the Sorcerer Sports, the Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com, for the three of us to get online and order them, because all three of us use them, whether it's Maddie or Woody or I. Like they are huge. When Hutch, I didn't mean to leave you out
No,
there,
he's the
but,
goalie in the family now. I'm irrelevant. It's all good.
Yeah,
It's all good.
I mean, you can wear yours around the house. That's not a bad
There
thing.
you go. I'm back to the
look
day
a
like
little-
when you got a
little-
new set of pads and you just wore them to bed because you loved them so much.
Yeah.
That's all I can do now.
What do you mean back in the day?
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I did that
with the
7
Axis?
months ago. It was a scramble to get online and for us to all look into the stock.
Yeah, and I would suggest that now that we've run this segment, anybody else that's looking for a set scrambles over there and gets it early, because they are tough to find. Now, this is the thing. Now, they changed, you heard Cam talk about it. They sort of changed it up a little bit from the old yellow one. So it doesn't say pour on XRD on it, but it is still G-form material. It actually says G-form right on the padding, which is really interesting to me. Now, that takes me back, Hutch. And we may not be certain whether we were the first to sort of identify the Lundqvist loop, but I'm damn certain we're the first ones to sort of identify the G-form padding. Remember when Carey Price had the knee sleeves on?
100%.
When Tim Thomas had the knee sleeves on, and it was, Bauer hadn't bought the rights to it yet. It was just G-form, and we ran a story on it. We ended up with hockey stores all over the country sort of scrambling to order it in because goalies were looking for this product. And that reminds me of, we talk about things running out. Remember a couple of years ago where the Bauer knee sleeves, we discovered that Cam had a whole bunch in stock at the warehouse, and we did the same thing because a lot of goalies were looking for this product. Bauer, there was about a 2-year period there, I want to say, between the yellow ones and these new sort of black style padded ones, just the switch over in the style where they didn't have any. And I know pro goalies who were looking for it. I'd heard stories about reps actually going back to the stores and buying them out so they could take care of their pro goalies with this material. Carey Price, we set up the Montreal Canadiens equipment manager with the hockey shop to order a bunch of those knee sleeves specifically for Carey. I'll never forget that when we discovered Cam had a bunch, texting Carey and saying, hey, remember we were talking about not being able to get those anymore? Well, I just found a bunch. Set up Cam with the Habs guy. So these things are in demand. They have a limited supply left. I was shocked when I saw it. And like you, Darren, I made sure I bought my own set before we announced to the world that they have some in stock. So don't waste any time. If you're still somebody who's out there, yours is wearing out. This is like the wedges with the cheek grooves. What piece of equipment would you buy multiple of? I would suggest stocking up on this one.
So here's an admission. Mine wore out. So I went because I'm very sensitive, and I was getting some bruised knees, and so I went to my local hardware store and bought the carpenter knee pads with the foam, and just took the foam out and put it in and taped it on because I didn't have access to this. Now I do.
Well,
but that's the length that I had to do. Now it's good.
The one thing I will say, if you ever get in a jam, because we're probably going to sell this product out and people are going to be like, God damn it, you guys, I was so excited to get this and they've already sold out. I waited too long, didn't listen to Woody and Darren about going online immediately to thehockeyshop.com. If you're ever in a jam, remember, G-Form still does sell the knee pads for skateboarders. So you can obviously find sort of extreme sports and skateboard shops and things like that and buy a knee sleeve. The way the foam's cut on it, it's not quite as perfect as the Bauer one. It doesn't sit under the knee. You have to sort of wear it at an angle a bit and maybe tape it a little bit. But if you're desperate, you can at least go get the padding there.
Probably don't see skateboarders in the padded goalie shirts, though. So I don't think you can go to the skate shop for those. No. You got to go to the hockey shop. And guys, I know it sort of sounds like we're getting excited here. It's going to sell out. It's going to sell out. But I actually did just look it up as you guys were talking. And that left me a lot of time to look it up. And when I did that, I saw that... Quite seriously, the mediums are sold out already. So if I was ordering one for my son right now, I wouldn't be able to do it. So they are going to go fast.
That was
fortunately, Woody and I are still in the game.
See, that was Darren. He bought them all.
Yeah, well, I'm fine. The double XLs are still in stock, so I can still get one.
So back to Hank and Bauer. By the way, he broke into the league in Louisville. That's how long ago he was in the league. Right?
We got a story on that too. TPS.
I didn't know they had a team in Louisville. I'm kidding.
That was good too. TPS, right?
Yeah. And so here's one. How about this? A private equity group purchased the rights because TPS and Sherwood were both in trouble. They purchased the rights to both of them. They then had a tough decision to make because they only wanted to continue with one of the two brands. And they actually talked to us about this at the time. Do we continue with Sherwood and Martin Brodeur as our guy? Or do we continue with TPS and keep Henrik Lundqvist as the face of the franchise? They decided to go with Sherwood and Brodeur, which was not a bad decision. I mean, Brodeur was still maybe not in his prime, but he was still very much at the, near his peak and one of the dominant goalies and prominent names in the league. But I think what they failed to recognize and frankly didn't listen to us on when they asked was that the style Marty was playing wasn't one that necessarily was going to translate or capture the attention and audience of younger goaltenders. And as much as Lundqvist played a very unique style himself, it was a little more at least butterfly based. And so I would argue that decision, it was officially the end of TPS just because they canceled it essentially and went with Sherwood instead. But it would be very interesting. Sherwood didn't last much longer as in that iteration and as a goalie brand. Would have been really interesting to see if it had been different had they chosen the other route and gone with Henrik Lundqvist and maintained the TPS brand instead.
Okay, so here's a couple of little just reflections on Henrik Lundqvist. First up, never played in the American Hockey League. Rarity that you come over from Europe and you don't spend any times, any games, any stint at all in the minor leagues. It's basically unheard of. And we're not talking like he didn't spend AHL, ECHL, anything.
Not just from
and
Europe,
there was
from anywhere.
5 years, I believe, between being drafted and making his National Hockey League debut. And he spent all that time in Europe and developed. So that I think that's really intriguing. And I don't know whether that's because he was the 7th round pick or and I'll get to the other reason why I think in just a second. But that's really interesting.
Well, and part of it is though, again, like I said, we talked about that Allaire quote about being able to adapt so quickly. And the fact he adjusted his game over here so fast meant he didn't need any time in the minors. He established himself so quickly as being capable. And don't forget, he was a 3-time Swedish Hockey League Goalie of the Year 3 years in a row before he came over. And in the year before he came over, I believe he also won Swedish League MVP. And what was significant about that season is it was the lockout year of 04-05. So Sweden was a very popular destination. He was playing against a lot of National Hockey Leaguers. And so if there was any doubt left on either his part or the part of the Rangers about whether he was ready after 2 straight Swedish Hockey League Goalies of the Year awards, it was gone after the third, especially because he did it against so many National Hockey Leaguers that were playing over in the Swedish League.
All right, here's my last thought. He was drafted in 2000. But never played until 2005. He was a 7th round choice. He could have, there's more cases where he would be overlooked, passed over, he moved on from the organization in that situation because the New York Rangers actually thought they had their future goaltender already in Dan Blackburn, who was drafted a year after Henrik Lundqvist and played 2 full seasons with the New York Rangers before suffering the injury while training and unable to continue. But like if Dan Blackburn would have remained healthy, like this whole it's weird how it all kind of comes to. Dan Blackburn was TPS goaltender too, but it's weird how it all sorts out. Lundqvist was able to just kind of work his way through, whether it was the Rangers' idea or his idea, because they had Dan Blackburn already in there and they thought he had in there. So just some synergy between the two.
One last piece of synergy. I believe it was that. I'm trying to remember, it was pre-lockout or right at the end of the lockout. Can't remember when the hire was made, but I remember being sort of, I don't want to say mocked, but a couple chuckles when I called the most important signing of the offseason that year was the New York Rangers taking Benoit Allaire away from the Arizona Coyotes as the goaltending coach, and it was just in time for Henrik to come over. And when I talked to Marty Biron, Alex Auld, all these guys that actually played for the Rangers, and Kevin Weeks witnessed that relationship between those two, like, you couldn't have had a better partnership than Henrik Lundqvist and Benoit Allaire. And again, if you know the synergy of those two arriving at the same time in New York, it all ties in together. And at the end, just a remarkable career. And I think we forget sometimes too, just a remarkable guy too. Don't overlook the charity work that he's done with his Henrik Lundqvist Foundation. And I mean, as cool as he was, you know, jamming on the Tonight Show, playing Sweet Child of Mine on his guitar, hanging out with John McEnroe, for all those things, like, he was still a really good guy, not just a megastar and a superstar, but a guy who cared a lot, and still this summer was out there with kids teaching at his goalie school in Sweden. So I hope he sticks around in some aspect in the game, because he's been a big part of it for the past 15 years here.
Played every game of his NHL career with the New York Rangers, and they've got all the tributes lined up and ready to go for Henrik Lundqvist. And are we seeing the same type of relationship with the first goaltender drafted in the National Hockey League this year, when you talk about goalie coach and athlete, and the relationship between Sebastien Cossa and Kurtis Mucha? That is our Sense Arena VR feature interview this week, and just a little bit of setup here before we get into it, because it's another one of those fascinating discussions where you get to pick the brain of both the student and teacher at the same time.
I love that. And, you know, we've done a few of these with sort of, it's a little tougher to do with the National Hockey League guys, but I love doing these with guys sort of that are coming up. We've done a few now, like a Jack LaFontaine and Carl Popper, obviously Alfie Michaud and Jeremy Swayman. And you sort of get that evolution of these goaltenders from both sides of it. And what I loved about this one with Kurtis is, Kurtis has been his coach since like 13 years old. So from a very early age, and to sort of hear both sides of that, I really, really enjoyed that. And I was very impressed. We've had Kurtis before, not on the podcast, but he's done some stuff at, you know, In Goal Mag and with Premium through the Hockey Canada webinars, where we've shared his presentations online. But this is the first time we've had him on here. And so I was just impressed with him. I was impressed with Sebastien. I love the conversation and the two-sided nature of it. And I'm really happy we got to do this.
I'm sure, Hutch, as you listen to this, you found it intriguing, like thinking of and putting yourself in goalie coach or parent or what have you, and then thinking of young Maddie coming up and at 13-year-old and going through the ranks, and the relationship that there is there.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of personal connections, I just loved it, as I have some of the other young ones that Woody was talking about, because they're so close. They're so close in age. They're so close in development to most, if not all, minor hockey goaltenders. And so you can really relate to the experiences that they're having. It's not something they're thinking back on from 15 or 20 years ago. They're very similar age to our kids right now. And all the lessons that he shares in this, all the things that he's going through, it's really easy to imagine that you're going through them as well. And so I think this is a great listen for young kids of all ages, just because, you know, Sebastian's one of them. Essentially, his dream's just beginning to come true right now. And there's a lot of great stuff in there that I think kids can take away from it. So, you know, I love this thing. Guys, you talk about synergies and all the what ifs around Henrik Lundqvist's career. It's really cool that he's had the same coach since he was 13 years old, but you don't get into the Western Hockey League just because you feel like signing with a team. You have to be drafted by a team. And so how did the stars align that Sebastien was able to be drafted and then work with his childhood goalie coach? Like, just great story.
Sense Arena VR, also a great story, continues to get it done. I mean, you'll hear in this conversation about all the starts and stops that they had to go through in the draft year. And Sense Arena played a pivotal role in so many athletes being able to stay sharp during the course of was a difficult situation. And I think we've learned a lot about the VR world and being able to use it, not just when society and the sports world pauses, but now into everyday preparation. Hutch.
Of course, the young up and comers are the ones that are looking for the edge. How can I find a way to grow my game a little bit better? So much more so during the last year and a half, I would say, Darren. I had another young pro reach out to me this week, actually saying, "Oh, I saw the email you guys sent out about a promo on Sense Arena. Give me your thoughts." And quite literally, every time somebody asks me my thoughts on Sense Arena, I send them the link to the review over at ingoalmag.com. Those are my thoughts. We're not just writing this up for them and giving a script. We tell it like it is. And so you can get a full rundown there, although there's, a lot has changed since we put that review out. And that's one of the things I love about Sense Arena is they're always upgrading the product. There's new drills being added, new interfaces, new abilities. And of course, one of them, as Woody mentioned last week, is a training plan from the great Dominic Hasek. I don't think you can use Sense Arena to learn how to do the barrel rolls and all those crazy things that the Dominator did, but he was very meticulous about his approach to the game and his training for the game, and he felt a connection with Bob and his team over at Sense Arena. And so get on there, give it a go, train like Hasek, and learn how to do that. As well, I've also mentioned before that we're going to do a series of videos for Sense Arena about our experience with it, and they finally published the first one. We'll put a link in the show notes for this one, but do go over to Sense Arena's YouTube page and check it out. You can see my son Matty actually applying one of the drills from ingoalmag.com, one of the ones that Eli Wilson and Evgeny Nabokov showed us. It's the moving glove drill, and we're taking those drills and applying them in Sense Arena. So you might see some of the stuff we post up over at InGoal Mag and think, well, yeah, but I can't tell my goalie coach what to do on the ice. But, well, with Sense Arena, you are your goalie coach. And we've said that many times before. You are your best goalie coach. And so take Sense Arena, get creative with it, and it will help you become a better goalie. And we just want to thank them for all their support of InGoal Radio Podcast.
Yeah, work on it with your coach and be respectful in that regard. But then you can also freelance a little bit and do your own thing with Sense Arena, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, one of the things, by the way, this is just an aside, but it relates. One of the things I loved up at Net 360 was getting to spend some time on the ice with Laurent Brossois and his new coach, Mike Rosati, in Vegas. And one of the things I loved about Laurent, and maybe it's just that he's reached this age where he feels confident about his game, and or maybe he's always been this way, but virtually every time they would go through a series of drills, and then he would say, "Hey, could we try this? Because this is something I need to really work on." And it's always an evolution of what the coach was always working on. It's never I don't agree with this, do it my way. It was this real back and forth that was fantastic to see. And so in a related way, he's got the luxury on the ice of working with a coach every day and being able to tailor some things his way, but you can do it with Sense Arena at home.
That's a new relationship to the long-standing partnership, Sebastien Cossa and Kurtis Mucha. It is our feature interview brought to you by Sense Arena VR on InGoal Radio, the podcast.
Okay, so this has been a format we tried before on the InGoal Radio podcast, and every time we do, it's a home run. So no, we're just setting some high expectations for you two here. Sebastien Cossa coming off an awesome summer, first goalie picked in the 2021 NHL draft, 15th overall by the Detroit Red Wings, who it's always nice when they trade up to grab you. Signed with the Red Wings, first World Junior Championship camp, massive summer, and his goalie coach with the Edmonton Oil Kings, someone that everyone here at InGoal should know well if they watched some of the videos we had at InGoal Premium off of the Hockey Canada Symposium last summer. Kurtis Mucha. Boys, thanks for taking the time to join us here on the InGoal Radio podcast.
Definitely.
Yeah, thanks, Kev.
Let's start with Sebastien. Let's start with you. I know you've kind of been along for this as well, Kurtis. But what's the summer been like? What's it like to go through this process of interviews and then getting drafted and signing it? Like, have you had a chance to sort of step back and think about what this summer's been like, or you just still live in the middle of it?
Yeah, busy to say the least. I think phone calls were going up right until the draft there, right on Friday. It's been busy, and with the Canada camp as well. no summer virtual camp, which was nice a little bit. Another week kind of free up there. So it was just the 1 week with the summer showcase. And then just been training my butt off, trying to get ready for camp here.
Okay, so Kurtis, you were there for the draft. What's that like to watch your student, someone you've worked with since he was 13 years old, get that call into the National Hockey League in the first round like that? You guys got to experience that together. What's it like from the coaching side? To how much pride are you feeling in that moment?
Yeah, it's it was a really cool experience. And I mean, it obviously doesn't, I don't want to say once in a lifetime because you never know, but it's the NHL, first round, you don't see it. You're not having 2, 3, 4 goalies every year there. So it is somewhat of a rare occurrence. You've seen a little bit more lately, but it was, a little cliche, but a little bit of a proud dad moment there. For Sebastien and I, it's a lot of years and a lot of hard work went into that, and the kid, I'm proud of the kid for all he's accomplished, and I know he's humble and he's saying the work starts now and all that stuff, but that event was pretty cool. It was cool to just the suspense of not knowing where it was going to happen. We all had some teams in our mind that we thought might step up, and then a couple didn't, and then we always knew Detroit was in the mix at any point. They had a lot of picks, so the moving up didn't really shock us. And then right up until the pick is like, is it Jesper or is it Sebastien? Like, what's it going to be? And it was pretty cool to hear his name. So I'm happy for the kid and his family.
Sebastien, in that moment, obviously a lot of excitement, but what was the process like leading up to it? And maybe I'll ask you specifically about one conversation, because I know you probably had talks with a lot of different teams and they would have varied in format. But the one you had with the Red Wings and with Chris Draper, where Chris Osgood, who has been a guest on this show and has been a longtime favorite of In Goal Magazine, where you had a long chat with Ozzy. What was that like? What was your takeaways of, from what I understand, 45 minutes on the phone with Chris Osgood?
Yeah, we did a little Zoom there. It was unreal to say the least. Obviously, I knew they were pretty interested to get me on the phone with him. But yeah, just him telling me kind of his story. Kind of his up and downs during his career and just kind of what to expect when you get there. Obviously Detroit's a franchise storied franchise, sorry. And yeah, they got some high expectations to go along with it, but just can't wait for that. But yeah, a lot of stories and his up and downs through his career, kind of just to be ready for beginning my NHL career.
Was there anything generally speaking, the ups and downs, was there any specifics that you took away from that conversation with Ozzy that's like this, hearing this from him can help me right now or can help me this season, or something I'm going to not necessarily put into your game technically, but a mindset that stuck with you that, this was valuable?
I think kind of I took away a bunch of different points there. I'm lucky myself being able to work out with a lot of pro guys. So I kind of see the consistency of their game. I think that's something they were really trying to hammer down. It's not really a game thing. It's it's an everyday thing. And you got to go to practice and all your training. And you got to show up and give it 110%, I think. So they were just kind of trying to hammer that down.
So preparation, I mean, that's funny. It's one thing that we've had that conversation with Chris before too. He used to actually, I think at one point he over prepared to get to the point where he'd, and we do this at In Goal. We show all these little things that different goalies all over the place do, eye drills and warm-ups and mental warm-ups and juggling. But sometimes it can get to be too much, right? And I think that was a big moment for him. He watched Dom Hasek, and Dom was just like chill until it was time to play, and then the intensity went up. So that lesson of not wasting it all before you start to play. What is your warm up? And maybe Kurtis, you can chime in here too on that process you've gone through with Sebastien. How does Sebastien Cossa get ready to play for a game?
Just like you kind of said there about Dom. I think I'm also kind of a more relaxed guy. Obviously you see a lot of goalies with headphones on and don't talk to me for 2 hours before the game. And I'm kind of the opposite of that. I'm kind of I think I'm the loudest guy in the room. But keep it loose until warm up and kind of really start dialing it in there. On ice, I do a couple of eye visualization stuff and work on there. But kind of after that, just my mentality when the game hits, it's go time.
Yeah, I think Kevin, I think it's interesting too, because like I'm at home games, I sit with the other coaches, head coach, assistant coaches, right? So I almost get like a perspective from what they're thinking. So then again, sometimes they see a goaltender being like a little loose, and not so like crazy focus and dialed in. That's kind of the thing that's Sebastian's approach. But if there's maybe it's a stinker of a game or something, and then they go back to, well, he was loose before the game, but I'm like, wow, that's his routine though. Like, because so it's kind of tricky, because it's like, well, what he should be doing more, he should be more focused. So it's like they want the goalies to be like really, really dialed in, but the players can goof around and play, sewer ball and whatever. So it's kind of, I mean, I like Sebastian's routine. It's been, I've helped him a little bit guide it, but over the years, but it's been mostly innate and what from himself. But he does take a little bit of a looser approach. And then, like he said, when it's go time, it's go time. And when it's business. But it's interesting because I'll hear different conversations of, he didn't look as focused today. Maybe that's why he let him for, I'm like, well, I don't know if that's truly the thing here, but it's just interesting on the other side of it.
Well, it's funny. You know what that reminds me of? I remember early in Carey's career in Montreal, right? Like everybody loves that cool, calm, water off a duck's back demeanor. But in the instances, especially early in his career where things maybe weren't going as well, they quickly turned on that and called it too casual, right? So it's that fine line, and it's different for every goaltender. Have there been points, Sebastien, in your very young career still, where you've tried to add things and experimented with different things in terms of preparation or routine, and just tried some of those different elements, and hey, it's just not for you, or how's it evolved to this point?
Yeah, definitely. I think in minor hockey, I was a little bit more loose with it and trying out new things, per se, some ball drills or something to get my eyes going before the game. But yeah, I think over the past 2 years in junior, I've kind of kept the exact same routine, and even the routine, it's pretty loose. But even for me, I think if something doesn't go right and something I can't do something one day, it doesn't really affect my game. I don't think about it too much there. So for me, I think I've kept the same routine the past 2 years, but definitely in minor hockey, I was changing it up a bit, trying to see what I like the best.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about the path to here, because obviously your game's evolved. Nobody arrives at 13 ready for the WHL or ready to be a first-round NHL draft pick. The process, you guys, that you've started, obviously Sebastien at 6'6" now, but you would have, as his coach Kurtis starting at age 13, I'm guessing he wasn't 6'6" at 13. There would have been a growth spurts, and probably times where the growth became not problematic, but a challenge. We see guys go through spurts, and then learning to control their body becomes a challenge. Take me back to 13, your first time working together as a pupil and coach, and how that relationship and how your game has evolved. Maybe start with you, Kurtis.
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember going to the Fort Saskatchewan tryouts, and I that's kind of an association I've helped out for the last ever since I started coaching, actually. And the coach Nick Trudeau at the time was saying, "There's this big kid from Fort Mac. You're gonna love him." That's what he said, and I mean that definitely came true 5-6 years later. But it was interesting because any goalie I go work with, obviously I'm all in. I want to help them become the best they can be. And at the time, Sebastien wasn't with the Oil Kings. He was a free agent in the Western Hockey League draft. So I was just working with him like I'd work with anybody. And he was a big kid, probably, I don't know, probably 6'1" in Bantam, maybe 6'2".
6'4", my bad.
No, maybe on skates. Oh, yeah, 6'4". I was 6'4" then. Anyways, big kid. A lot of good things to his game. A little raw just because of the growth that he had already done at that point. I felt at times he moved too much just because he didn't really I just didn't understand how much he needed to move, but he had great athletic ability early on, and his movement laterally was good for a big kid. So in all, it's Sebastien chime in, but we just kind of built it out and kept adding to a foundation, really got the tracking piece going. We're still working on that as he gets into higher levels and better shooters, but I think the skating and the tracking were the two biggest things early on that we wanted to work on and focus with.
Sebastien, actually, let me take you. I'm going to rewind it a little bit further for you. That's obviously as you get started working with Kurtis, but where did goaltending start for you? Where did the passion begin there's usually a couple of different common themes in origin stories, as we've discovered 130 some odd episodes into this. Where's yours? How'd you get started with the position?
Yeah, we were doing, and it was my novice second year. To start the year, there's 3 goalies, and by Christmas, I was the last one standing. The other 2 had quit, and it was kind of left up to me, and I liked it already. I can't remember per se, but I'm pretty sure I was all right at it from a young age, and kind of just kept with it.
What do you love about it now? What'd you love about it then? What made you? Because there's kind of if you don't have a passion for this position, you usually don't succeed at it, whether it's coaching or playing. Like, you got to kind of embrace, it's a tough spot at times. You kind of got to embrace it. What do you love about it now?
Yeah, I think just the compete of it. I think, at the end of the day, every player on the other team wants to score, and I'm that guy that's going to stop them. I think it's kind of the one-on-one game with the other players, and then also kind of just being that last line of defense. I said in a couple of interviews, but either being the hero or the villain. If you let in a weak one, fans aren't too happy with you. But obviously, when you're standing on your head, you can win a game or two, win a series even for your team. So I think, just the kind of the pressure that comes with it. I really love that.
You've embraced it by the sounds of it. Was there anyone as you get started, maybe not all the way back to novice, but were there, like, when did you get your first goalie coach? When did the game become something you thought about in terms of the position? Or how much of it early on was just, mimicking? Was there a guy on TV locally, NHL team that you looked up to and it's like, I want to be that guy? How did your process of evolution begin? Was it more of that trying to emulate what you saw on TV, or when did coaches enter the conversation?
Yeah. I think the first couple of years I was just trying to save the puck. But yeah, I think, my first goalie that I really liked and still my idol, Carey Price. Just, the way he plays, the way he is in his net, like you said earlier, the cool, calm demeanor he has, and, just how easy he makes the game look. I think that's something I really look after. And playing big, he's 6'4", at the top of your crease, if you're able to move, you can play big. So yeah, that's kind of really where I focused on it. And then I'd say, I think my Pee Wee second year, I started with a goalie coach. And yeah, like Mooks had said, my Bantam second year still really raw. And obviously my games went from night to day now.
Are there any guys, and you guys talk about this at all, maybe as the two of you? Do you look at NHL film together? Do you look at some of the guys as you've gotten bigger, Sebastien? And I said 6'6" at the top, but I think I read you said somewhere that it's still growing and maybe 6'7" already. Do you guys watch together some of the, do you watch a Pekka Rinne who's just retired? Do you watch a Jacob Markstrom to see how they manage their size? Are you paying attention to how guys at the top level do it?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned those two names, actually, because there was a stretch last year, like the season that COVID eventually ended, that season, so Sebastien was 17. There's a stretch where the Oil Kings, I think, played like 3 games in 3 weeks, or 3 games in 2 weeks. It wasn't much. I think we had Beck warm as well at the time. So I think Sebastien was basically going to get 1 game in like 3 weeks. Just a weird schedule. So I said, like, let's look at some NHL guys. Let's take that downtime. It was all year at home the whole time. And I said, pick 3 or 4 goalies in the league, bigger guys, and I'll pull some clips from Instat and let's do like a little project. So I believe you picked Rinne, Markstrom, who's the guy in Dallas, the big guy?
Bish?
Yes, Barry Bishop. And then I think Vasilevsky was the 4th one, right? So it was cool, kind of cool. I wanted him to, and that was when he was only 17 in the Western League, but I just wanted him to start to see what guys at the next level, bigger guys, how they play. And there's some really good contrast between those goalies. So that's something we did when he was a rookie in the league. Yeah.
You remember that, Sebastien? Is there any in those moments, did you take any specifics, or it's like, man, I love how this guy does this, and you're trying to add it to your game or incorporating it even in a small way?
Definitely, yeah. I think you try and pull stuff from everyone. Obviously, I think you look at, for a guy like me, Pekka Rinne or even Vasilevsky is the best case scenario, but for their skating and Markstrom's post play is very good. Just with Rinne's size and how well he moves, his hands, I think. Just, yeah, you take small things from kind of everyone's game.
Now, from the outside looking in, and obviously I read all the scouting reports in the draft and all this stuff heading into the draft, and I'll be perfectly honest, I don't get an opportunity just because I can barely keep up with the goalies in the NHL and trying to keep up with this stuff. So I don't get a chance to watch. But I look at the numbers and I read all this stuff, and he had a hell of a year in 2019-20. And then we go into the bubble year, and I know there's a lot of outside weird circumstances, pandemic and bubble and everything. But I mean, 941, man. From the outside, that looked like a step. I saw other people and analysts describe it as you taking a step. I'm curious, how much was that just natural progression, or were there some things you worked on in between those two stages that you feel really helped you in your game? Any specifics you can share with us between those 2 years? Because, like I said, it was already a hell of a performance going into last season, but those are some unworldly numbers we saw in the bubble.
Yeah, I think there's a big off season there, and I think I took every step that I could. I was really dialed in during that 9-10 months of COVID there. On off ice, it was almost night and day. I've got much stronger, more flexible, more control over my body during that time, and even the on ice, there was some stretches where we weren't able to go on the ice. I think it was even before training camp. I hadn't been on the ice for 6 weeks, so kind of working with Mucha a little bit this year with some COVID restrictions, but I think really just the biggest key for me this year going into it was just the consistency of it. If I'm bringing my game every single night, and I think the stats were so good because I didn't really have a night off. Maybe one or two that I want back, but there wasn't any 5 goals against 20 shots. I think just the consistency there kind of is kind of really the biggest step, I think.
Yeah, there's two things on my end on that. Like, I think it was such an interesting offseason. Like, we were allowed, I say that very carefully, like we were allowed to skate in the summer. And I was so happy with this last summer leading into August when a normal training camp would happen. And I felt this game was probably the best it ever could have been. And then except the dub kept pushing it back, right? So it was like September, October, November. It was okay. Like, we're just kind of maintaining things and trying to keep in a good mental mindset as well, just because nobody knew what was going to happen. And then in Alberta, I think it was like December until training camp, like they shut rinks down entirely again. And Sebastien still able to do some workouts, but very body weight because gyms were shut down too. And I remember going once we were back into the WHL training camp with just our team, we had 2 weeks until a game, and we went to Lau, our head coach, and I was like, we need goalie ice every day. like we said, there's a day off when there's a day off to rest, but we need goalie ice every day. And we did as much as we could in that time just to get him up and running. And I'll give the kid credit for the season. And I feel for all the goalies that usually have goalie coaches helping them, and especially the ones in the bubble. Like, a lot of the onus this season was put on Sebastien, because I'd still come out twice a week. I'd get 30 minutes. I'd have to stand at the blue line. I couldn't come within reach. I couldn't be in the room. I couldn't do video after. Some of it we did a little bit of through Zoom and whatnot. But I felt like Sebastien was a bit of on an island himself this year, and he just had to figure it out a little bit too. So I think it was really challenging in certain areas, and I tried to support him. I know our assistant coach stepped up big time. Luke Pierce was great in helping little things with the goalies as well. But it was just a really weird year in terms of what we were able to do and try and, almost go in maintenance mode and just stay as sharp as we could for those weird stretches, right?
I want to ask you a little bit about the off-ice stuff, Sebastien, and you talked about body control and things like that. So I'm curious. I want to pull on that string a little bit. But first, having that, not having Kurtis there as much, having, as he said, to be on an island in yourself, we've seen that at other times. Sometimes, not intentionally, we can see goalies right up to the pro level almost become dependent on their goalie coach to manage their game. Looking back at it, as much as it may have been difficult in the moment, and at the time, especially coming off, like you said, such a stressful time of the pandemic and all the uncertainty and all the downtime, was there a benefit, Sebastien, in sort of having to learn to manage your own game? And you said it sure sounds like you managed it okay, because the intensity never wavered. There wasn't an off night. What did you learn about yourself in that process of having to sort of take charge and direction of your own game and your own preparation without having a goalie coach there as often as you might normally?
Yeah, I think I was just I put some more detail into it. Anytime I could. Obviously watching every single video and also I think I'm a student of the game. A lot of things Moose has taught me has a lot of the things he would be reminding me are just simple reminders that I can see throughout the game myself. And obviously if there's some stuff that needs to be changed is when I'm talking to Mucha. But yeah, just keeping the small details, really sharp throughout the season was something I was doing really well with video there.
Now, just out of curiosity, because obviously, like for us, the audience is goalies, right? So this audience they're hearing these things about little things and, things that you always have. Can you share, like, are you okay to share any of them with them? Because there's probably kids right now out there listening, and we hear a lot from parents that listen to this podcast on the way in and out of the rink with their kids. Are there any, some of those messages and some of those little keys that you two can share in terms of, what those anchors are that you went back to, that you double checked, that you were able to use to help manage your own game?
Yeah, I think early on, especially early on in the season, again, we hadn't played a game like almost a full calendar year. Maybe it was more. I don't even know the specifics, but I said to him the other day, I said, I've never really been nervous watching Sebastien. I'm very confident in his ability, all the work we put in. But that first game against, I think it was Lethbridge to start the season, I was actually nervous. I just didn't know how I was going to go. I'm like, I don't know how our team's going to be. Nobody's played a game in forever, right? So for me, early on, it was just controlling the game, slowing it out as much as we could. So getting tons of whistles. And to me, what that came down to was just his ability to track pucks really well, really clean. All the way to contact. If it hit his logo, it was a whistle. If it was in his glove, it was a whistle. If it was on the ice, it was in row 12 in the netting. Like everything was slowing it down as much as we could, letting our team get into the game because there were some things that even though we had a good team, we still had to work some stuff out as well. So I think on a bit of a technical piece, I was just making sure and wanted him to just really track pucks as diligently as he could to control the game, control your rebounds, make it as less chaotic in our own end. So we could spend as much time on the other end. So that was one thing for me. There might be a couple of things for Sebastien, but for me, it was just tracking and controlling the game as much as we could.
Was that a thought process that controlling the game, Sebastien? It's funny, when I hear that, who I think of Joel Hofer when we had him on after he won a World Junior Championship. And in the context of a gold medal game where there were some nerves, he also talked about that, about controlling pucks. If it's on the body, it's smothered. If it's on the ice, it's in the netting, and allowing the team to sort of find itself because they weren't scrambling. Rebounds were all controlled. Is that conscious effort for you, Sebastien, heading into that season and into that first game?
100%. Yeah, I think obviously that's every game you're trying to control the pace for your team. But yeah, obviously that first one, and I think it was 2 days shy or something. It was of a year of not being able to play. So just everyone was rusty. It was still a jittery first period to say the least, but yeah, definitely controlling the game, like Mucha said, getting whistles every single time you can for sure.
Are there any other things, little takeaways or keys that, every goalie I think has something that in their mind that they use as an anchor, whether it's between whistles, before a puck, or even when the play is coming at them? Like, are there any you can share with us that you used through this process? Like I said, as you were managing your own game, what are your staples that you're thinking of, whether it's going into the game or, well, it's actually going on?
Yeah, I think I got a good quote from Mooks, just watching the puck. At the end of the day, if you see the puck, you're tracking the puck well, you're going to be able to make the stop. So I think, especially coming into this year, Mooks had played in a couple empty barns in his career. So just kind of getting used to that. And the intensity wasn't really there this year with having no fans. So just, staying dialed throughout the entire game. And just, that was kind of the building block that I always came back to, going into a game, just, watch the puck, you watch it really well. You kind of overtrack the first couple, and then you start feeling good and getting into your game there.
Okay, so empty barns, I got to ask about that. And I actually think I've been guilty of not asking enough guys that, whether it was right up to the NHL that we've had on, what that was like. Is that a different kind of challenge when you talk about, like, you feel that lack of intensity as a goalie back there? Kurtis, if you were in the rink watching, do you feel that lack of intensity? Is it on you as a goaltender how do you find that line of manufacturing it for yourself without getting overhyped?
Yeah, at the home games for us, I'm not sure Sebastien obviously answered this, but I felt like with the Oil Kings setup, it wasn't in the big rink, right? So it was the practice rink. It almost had more of a minor hockey feel, and it wasn't this big, quiet stadium that we were playing in. A little bit different in some of the other rinks in Red Deer and whatnot. So, but yeah, just to elaborate on what Sebastien said, for me, just in my old CAS days when I was playing, like we'd go to UBC. They had a huge rink there. It was a beautiful rink, but they just wouldn't get that many people coming out, right? So, for me, I always told myself, I'm like, you go into the game, it's no atmosphere. Like you kind of sometimes feel off. And I said, I took a step back. I'm like, my play doesn't depend on how I feel. I don't want to play off a feeling. It to me is just watch a puck. I play off of my visuals. I play off of my foundation. And I just kind of shared that story with Sebastien because I knew it was going to be somewhat similar. It wasn't a pandemic that I played through. It just not a lot of people come out to certain teams in the CIS, right? So it was a little bit different, but I think he did a pretty good job managing that. Our team did a good job creating their own energy, but yeah, Sebastien could speak a little bit more to some of those other rinks.
Tougher in some rinks than others, Sebastien?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like Mucha said there at Rogers, we were in the DCA, and yeah, I agree with them there with the minor hockey kind of feel. You look up and you see maybe 20 or 30 scouts there. So maybe after every goal against, you look up and see them writing stuff down. Maybe it's a little bit more nerve-wracking then, but yeah, when we're down in Lethbridge and Red Deer, bigger rinks like that, you can feel it more, I think.
And how did you create your own energy in that? Like, what did you do to find that intensity level that allows Sebastien Cossa to have that success?
I think, at the end of the day, your job's to stop the puck. So I think, the intensity level, whatever you need and you feel like, the music's going in warm-ups and stuff, that's getting me going. And our team did do a good job of creating our own energy. Obviously we had a solid team and we would get into some good momentum, pushes and that kind of just use that, for myself. If the team's going good right now, the last thing we need is a goal against. So I think I just kind of rode the wave of the team's atmosphere.
You talk much? Like, is communication a big part of that? Whether it's, I know you like to handle the puck, whether it's making sure that communication is there with the D in terms of whether it's a leave or an over or what you're going to do with it. Or I've also heard, I saw some of the TSN clips with Mark Masters. I've heard you like to do a little talking to other guys as well. Is that just part of creating that for you, that mindset and that mentality?
Yeah, definitely. Especially in my defensive zone, there's, our team has a lot of short calls. If it's just, like you said, little bumps there or overs. So yeah, definitely always calling out plays there. You're the goalie, you can see the whole ice. If you can help your defenseman out and make their life a little bit easier, it's just going to help you. So I think, I'm calling a lot of the calls and yeah, sometimes chirping. But yeah, that's usually, in a lower action night, just trying to stay in the game, I think.
Okay. Now Kurtis talked a little bit about tracking and you talked about watch the puck as a mentality. And I think at some level it is as simple as that. But I think a lot of people hear that and they think it's just like, hey, like eyes on the puck, like a baseball player, right? Keep your eye on the ball. What is tracking? I know Kurtis, you've worked with Dustin Schwartz and there are some different definitions, a little more sort of biomechanically involved where tracking is more than just watching the puck. It initiates movement and things like that. So I'll ask you first, Sebastien, when Kurtis says tracking, what is it to you?
I think it's kind of your whole game. We've put tracking on a big level. I think it starts, with head trajectory and staying over top of the puck. And then, obviously with your setup, it's you're watching the puck, but, I think your head leads your entire body and when the puck's coming and you got a good eye on it, I think you're gonna meet the puck in a good angle or good area with your hand in front of you or whatever the save is and kind of control it from there. So I think it's just like I said, it starts with head trajectory and just watching the puck in fully till completion.
Does it help, Kurtis, like when we talk about body control and obviously a big frame, longer limbs, sometimes controlling that is a lot tougher. We also hear a lot, and this is, I've been guilty of repeating this phrase in radio interviews myself, like big goalies equals bigger holes, right? Like that's just kind of a general thought. But when I watched you play, Sebastien, like there wasn't a lot of open and close in your movements. When you skate, when you move, it's compact. There's not a lot of counter rotation, Kurtis. Like, is that where we see some of the mechanics of tracking initiated movement pay off, especially for a goaltender of Sebastian's size?
Yeah, I would agree. I think for me, I don't know like the number, like I would say the majority of tracking discussion is placed on shots, and for good reason. But I think tracking through your skating, tracking through your movements doesn't get enough attention. And I think if you look at the best skaters in the world, they track through their movements really well, right? So they're going to set angle, then they're going to push. So they're not getting too spread out right away. There's no delays in their movement, which results to them being set early. So now they can track the shot, right? So I think, to me, tracking, I like that Sebastien said, and he's probably going to come take my job one day if you explain it that well. But I think, tracking starts in your setup, right? It has to be in your setup, has to be in your stance. Your eyes have to be in the right spot. And it is a mindset thing for sure. But tracking shots is awesome. I think tracking through your movements, tracking through a pass. Anytime we do a session, very rarely do we have just me and him. I try and get multiple shooters because I don't want him just pushing to me for a shot. I feel that creates horrible habits in terms of, if there's a pass that he can watch, now we're working on the skating the right way, right? So I find that and I think that's a testament to why he does move so well, is he bought into it early on, but he tracks really well through his movements. So I hear a lot and I think he does move well for a big guy, but they say that he's an efficient skater, and they're always surprised because he's so big, he can move well. But I think it goes back to tracking through his movements and the skating, and that allows him to be set fairly early and then work off the shot release, right?
Now, another goalie that I think of in those terms does this very well, and you had some experience with, and I'm just curious where he fit into the evolution, because he was brought in, and I would think I don't know how you would have reacted to it at the time, Sebastien, but like, what was the relationship like when Beck showed up for that year? Because he's a guy that I've watched at pro camps and seen other coaches actually point to as a good model for exactly what we just talked about in terms of that efficiency of movement and the way it's initiated and the biomechanics of it.
Yeah, Beck's an unreal guy. I think he came in and took a real good leadership role on me. Just kind of showing me the ways. Obviously, he was facing a lot of rubber in Tri-City, so he knew how to take care of his body for 50 or 60 games in a season. So I think just kind of taking that off of him, how kind of his routines are off ice, on ice, just I think really took how he took care of his body is the biggest thing I took from him, really. And then a bunch of stuff on ice. Like you said, the tracking and his puck handling behind the net, I think is another really big thing that me and Kurtis kind of took away from. I think he moves the puck very well and he retrieves the puck very well. So, just definitely taking a couple things off him.
What was your mindset going into it when you heard those? I mean, you're having the success as a 17-year-old, and all of a sudden they bring in a 20-year-old. How did you two have conversations about how, what this was about? Because there are times where I don't know how you would have felt. You would have felt like, hey, no, this is my gig. Like, how'd that go? What were those conversations like, and how was your mindset initially, and how did it evolve?
Yeah, definitely. I heard about the trade right after we got off the ice, of beating Everett in a shootout. So, I had a really hot December there and had just beaten Everett. And then I see that we trade for probably one of the top three goalies in the league at the time. So obviously definitely a little disappointed, but at the same time, it's a business, and we were obviously going to go on a deep run that year. Last year, and we needed a top goalie. So I think, at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do about it. So you just got to come to the gym or come to the rink the next day and kind of put your head down and get to work. The games that I wasn't going to play in, I needed to show what I had, and if there was an option that I was going to be able to play on playoffs, I was going to need to show that I can win some games there. So obviously didn't powder or be disappointed in it. Had a great relationship with Beck, and kind of just took some things off each other, I think.
Kurtis, I didn't preface this. I didn't ask you before the show, so I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot here, but like, how tough, like, you must have known what, like, Sebastien being as competitive as he is, how he might react to that. But obviously there's a maturity here as well. How, like, do you have a voice in those discussions, or
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I seen like we sent Sebastien home at 16 too from the Western Hockey League. And was he ready for the league? I think he was. We had to sort our goalies at the time, but I saw how he responded there. Like, I know he was really rattled at that time, but he does a good job of not really showing the frustration. And I think he did the same thing with when Beck came in. And I even personally talked to the general manager, and I'm not on management, so I don't know how everything works there, but I personally felt that what we were giving away for Beck, those assets might have been better off, down the road to use and to bolster our team in other areas. But at the same time, Sebastien was 17. We would have had to either acquire an older, weaker goalie, not on Beck's level, or go with a 16-year-old behind Sebastien and Colby Knight. So that wouldn't have been great either with going into a deeper playoff run. So I didn't understand it. And after a week getting to know Beck and seeing if Sebastien bought in, which he did, seeing what he'll take away from Beck, it was invaluable. Whatever we gave up, the picks and whatever player or something like that was well worth the return for Beck. And it would have been, nicer to obviously play out the season and go on a deep run. But I loved Beck. He was great for our organization. He's great for players, not just Sebastien. Like, he was good for other young guys to see his professional mentality and how he conducted himself. So yeah, initially I was almost as Sebastien. I was kind of frustrated. He took over. The other guy kind of left the team, so we were in a bad spot. But hard to be mad when a guy like Beck comes through the door, right? So he was good to have.
Well, and so for our audience who's like, what do they mean didn't finish? Just so everyone knows, that was the 1920 season, which got canceled. There was no playoffs because of the pandemic in the Western Hockey League. You mentioned, Sebastien, controlling your body and changing some of the things you did that huge off season before having such a good year last year and learning to sort of control your frame. You talked a little bit about learning some things from Beck. So walk us through what maybe changed in the way you were preparing off the ice, because you'd mentioned that as being a big part of such a big last season. Can you give us any specifics, any advice that, let's say, Sebastien Cossa, the first round draft pick, was talking to Sebastien Cossa, the 16-year-old. What advice would you give him about how you train, maybe now versus then?
Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, you want to be going on the ice and you want your body to be feeling good. I think, just the evolution of my warm-ups and cool downs, you won't see me skipping a cool down, and most days I'm in the tubs or the Normatex, just doing everything I can to keep my body loose. I think that's really the biggest point. At the end of the day, your body's your moneymaker, and it's your career. So you got to take care of it, right? I think just really, the hydration part, eating healthy, that wasn't as big as a problem for me, but, I think just, staying how dialed Beck was, I think it just really showed me kind of the next step that I needed to take.
So more preparation as opposed to changing how you actually train in the off season, more just game day and practice preparation. What does a typical dynamic warm up or preparation to hit the ice look like for you nowadays?
Yeah, obviously, doing rolling out before. If it was to be the warm up, would be rolling out for a little bit, and then get some dynamic warm up in there, get the heart rate going, and then do some static stretching maybe a little bit, just getting ready for the ice there, and then when I'm cooling down, it's always rolling and quite a bit of static stretching.
All right, I wanted to, we're kind of pushing up against the time here a little bit. I've had you guys on, as usual, with me longer than I promised. But I did want to ask you a little bit too, a couple for you, Sebastien, a couple things you're involved with that I read about that I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about, and just curious how you got started in it. One is, and this probably speaks to the character and the maturity stuff we've talked about a little bit, but hockey gives blood. And your role there, I've seen on your social media, is promoting that. Why is that important to you? How'd you start getting involved? And is there anything, in terms of messages to people to sort of where they can help? Yeah.
It was my 17-year-old year in Edmonton. Our assistant coach is one of the co-founders for Hockey Gives Blood, and one of the ambassador at the time on my my hockey team, Ethan Kapp, he was going to donate blood and invited the guys on the team, and there was about 10 of us who went there, when we were there, it's just kind of the question of what can I do, what else can I do, so I think just being an ambassador and kind of spreading awareness on it. I think at the end that's the goal. There's not ever enough blood. I think just the message out there is to go donate. There's, like I said, there's never enough blood, so you could potentially be saving a life. For something that's so easy to do.
Kurtis, you get to see this every day in this young man. You've seen it since he was, like you said, 13, 14 when you started working with him. You probably got this question a lot from NHL teams in the process. What is it about Sebastien and his mindset and his maturity that jumps out to you? What were some of the questions, some of the answers? I mean, obviously we see examples like how he handled Beck coming in. We see examples like getting involved with Hockey Gives Blood. But as much as we focus, I think, on my world on technical, like how much do you think the success here is based on that mindset and that maturity and that side of things?
Yeah, no, he's come a long way in that. And I think his maturity is starting to become years beyond his actual age. And this, not the story, but what kind of something I tell the NHL teams that they'd call me before the draft was, when he was 13 and 14, 15, even 16, when we planned some off-season training, I'd always go through Sandy, his mom. We just coordinated it all. Going into his 17-year-old year with Oil Kings, he came over. I cooked him a really nice steak dinner. But the preface was, he brought his calendar with him, and he just mapped out, like he had it planned out already. He planned out his whole summer, asked if I wanted to, or if I felt like I needed to change or alter or to add anything or delete anything, make sure I had rest time to go little holiday in BC or whatever it might be. So to me, he took ownership of his his training, his off seasons, and that carried into the season as well. But the maturity, the ownership, he's a great goalie, obviously. And, he's hopefully going to make this a long career, but I think that started, before he was drafted, before he was even really known, before he was ranked. He wasn't in the league at 16, right? So I think his trajectory to where he got to was a lot steeper, and I think it's all well-deserved. But I think his approach back then, taking ownership of his game, not letting mom and dad, always be the driver. I like to see that he, stepped up and said, I want to do this and this and this. And then he came to me and said, hey, is this okay? And 95% of it was great. I didn't need to really, a couple ideas I threw at him, but that maturity, and that's not me or his agent or his mom saying, hey, go do this. It was just, again, it was him just doing it. And I think that's pretty cool. You don't see that a whole lot. So, I mean, that could be a good message for the younger goalies that might listen to this as well.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it kind of ties back into taking ownership of his own game, right? You when you weren't able to be there as often in the bubble, like you really can't just depend on other people, can you, Sebastien, to do everything for you?
No, yeah. At the end of the day, it's your game. It's going to be your career. So I think you need to obviously be the most invested into it. And there's how many other goalies in the world that want to do it. So I think obviously you need to be as dedicated as you can. And at the end of the day, just keep developing your game to make sure that you're the best that you can be.
All right. Last one, that schedule, that calendar, you've rolled it out coming up. Like, what does the rest of the summer look like for you? Did you know you'd be signing that contract? Did you have that one checked off on the day? Did you expect to sign this soon? World Junior Championship camp, what was that like? And, how do you move from here into the next season and ensure that you are still building and are sort of setting goals? What would they look like for next year?
Yeah. I didn't know I was going to be signing so early. Obviously that's just, obviously happy that I could do that. That's obviously a goal of mine. So happy to get that out of the way. And the rest of my summer, it's just a week and a half left. The Oil Kings camp starts September 1st. So going to be skating 3 times with Mooks next week. And, in training camp there, get a couple goalie sessions because I'm going to be going down to Detroit and September 13th there. For rookie tournament in Traverse City and main camp on the 22nd. So just gonna be busy here again in a month here. So looking forward to that. And then like with Dog Canada, it was a good camp. It was a week long there. Much different camp than what the U17s was. It was much more relaxed and which was nice. But I think camp for them again in December will start on the 13th there. So got to have good starts to the season and hopefully get invited there and earn a spot on the team there.
Exciting times. I do got to ask one more because I feel like this is our host, Darren Millard, is going to be laughing his ass off when he hears me go one more for the third time. But what was the biggest moment? Like I talked about the Osgood interview. You guys are talking about Dominic Hasek with Chris Draper and Chris Osgood. You're drafted by Steve Yzerman. Like, have you had any holy crap moments? Or did I just list a bunch of them? Are there any other ones that jump out for you? Like, you've signed with the Detroit Red Wings. Are there any other, what part of that jumps out the most? Is there an experience in that process that just kind of still leaves you shaking your head a little?
Yeah, I think, obviously it's been a very exciting summer and so many, obviously one time in a life, opportunities that happened. And I think honestly, just getting drafted, I think that's been the biggest goal in my career for forever. I think every kid dreams about that, and at the end of the day, that was probably the most exciting I've been. Just hearing my name getting called, especially there by Yzerman there, and the first goalie off the board. I think draft night was definitely something that I obviously won't forget.
Awesome stuff. And Mooks, one last one for you, buddy. How do you set this up for him? I mean, that he just walked us through his schedule, and I'm guessing it's going to be an extra challenge for you too, because you're going to lose this guy a couple different times. You're going to lose him for main camp with the Red Wings, for Traverse City, which is got to be kind of cool, Sebastien, historic tournament like that. And then also World Junior Championships. I don't think people appreciate how much of a challenge that can be for a CHL or, in some cases, NCAA organization to lose key players at that time of year. How do you, as the goalie coach, look for ways to sort of fill those gaps while he's gone?
Yeah, no, it will be very challenging. I think two things for me. I think obviously when he's gone, I'll still be with him. We'll still just checking in, just making sure he's good. I've a lot invested in this kid since he's 13 years old, and I want him to be the best he can be. So if I'm not even talking technical stuff, you just shoot me a quick text after the day, or how did it go? Was it good, bad? And if I can be there, great. If it's 30 seconds, if it's 10 minutes, if it's an hour, he knows I'm always there. I'm one phone call away. That's the nice thing with COVID is we're well more connected now with the Zooms and all this stuff, right? But on the Oil Kings side, it is tough. It opens up the door though for other guys. I think our scouts and management and the Oil Kings done a great job. We have some really good goalie depth. I couldn't be happier with that. So to me, that's exciting. I know the head coach might not be as excited to lose all these guys, but I'm going to get to see what Colby Knight, Colby Hay, Alex Worthington coming up. If we get him signed, there's a lot of good goalies there. So I'll get to see what they can do. And it'll be a lot of young goalies that are really, keen and eager to have their time, because the season last year, it's tough to get games if you're not Sebastien Cossa last year. So it'll be opening for somebody to step up, and that's exciting for me. So it'll be tough, but it'll be good.
Well, an exciting year coming up, coming off of an incredibly exciting summer. Guys, I really appreciate you both taking the time to sort of share some behind the scenes looks and some great advice that I know a lot of the goalies listening are going to appreciate. So thanks so much for this. Congratulations to both of you. And I'm excited to see what follows and to follow the path, Sebastien, as you continue to move forward, and to one day see you down here at Rogers Arena and just, catch up at the rink in a Detroit Red Wings uniform. I can't wait.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot. Thanks. Appreciate it, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin.
That was fast. That was fun, and that was honest. And when I say honest, I go back to what Kurtis was talking about, and the idea that Sebastien sometimes is cool and casual and loose in the dressing room. And I was giggling when Kurtis said that sometimes the coaches will say, "Hey, he was a little loose there," because I've seen it. I've heard it from coaches before. When goaltenders aren't that, we always make fun of goaltenders being so type A. And they're weird, they're whatever. But when you get a goaltender that's loose and casual, coaches are almost fearful of it, and they get out of their comfort zone. You got to be the. And I was just giggling at that part when the coaches would say, "Oh, see, I told you he was too loose." That made me chuckle a bit.
That's a good lesson, actually. It's a really good lesson. Here's a kid who's the first goalie selected in this draft, 15th overall. Detroit Red Wings trade up to get him, sign him to a 3-year contract right away. So clearly the kid can play.
Yeah.
And yet still, as recently as this past season, at a level as high as the WHL, you would have coaches say he's too loose. It's a really good lesson for everyone at the younger levels to maybe chill out a little bit and not get too worked up about that kind of stuff. There isn't one way to prepare. And as long as they are prepared when the puck drops, that's all that matters. It doesn't have to look the same. Heck, we've seen it the other way, right? Like how many guys have we talked to on this podcast over the years? And it's been years now, where all those preparation things that I'm sure coaches love, the juggling, the focus, the eye stuff that we see pregame on hockey night at the NHL level, where some guys struggle because it's too much and they're worn out. Like from Chris Osgood of an older generation talking about it to Thatcher Demko as a newer generation guy. Like sometimes too much is too much, and sometimes just being able to have a coffee and be loose is more important.
Couldn't agree more. I think if you see those things as I've got to do this, I've got to do that, checklist, all the things I need to do to prepare, you're probably over preparing. You're probably getting a little bit too tight. Although, as you say, different strokes. Everybody can do things different ways. I think if you take all those preparation routines and they become a way of relaxing, well, then maybe you can get ready. So do you go out in the hallway because I've got to juggle, I got to get my eye work in? Or is it, I just want to get my mind off the game and just not worry about things? Then this is my routine. So absolutely. And I just loved listening to this one for that reason amongst many others, guys. There's many ways to prepare.
And you don't always have to prepare the same way. But if you've got that routine that you can lean on one way or the other, maybe it's a day that you need to be looser. Maybe it's a day that you need a little more focus. But you don't have to be the same way in that box every time. And Kurtis, cool guy, like just a cool guy, and he's doing a great little project here to give back.
Yeah, I think so. Two things there. One, I know Kurtis has been in the mix for a couple of goalie development jobs with NHL teams and AHL teams. So good luck to him there. I think this interview shows you why when you hear from him and the relationships he's built with Sebastien and the approach. I think you have an understanding as to why he's caught the attention of teams. So, and the second part is, like, I had no idea when we recorded that he hadn't made this public, and I had no idea what him and his wife were going through. But since then, and before we recorded this, he sent out on his social media, and it's at Kurtis Mucha GC, Kurtis with a K, Mucha is Mucha on Twitter, his Twitter account, a message about his daughter Oakley, who was born with some pretty serious health issues in January of 2021, some 4 major heart defects, and had to have open heart surgery at the age of 6 months. Is potentially looking at another surgery. And so he's come up with a fundraiser, but not for him. The surgery went well. He's not looking for money for him or his daughter or anything like that. He wants to thank the hospital staff in Edmonton, the Stollery Children's Hospital Foundation. And so he's come up with an idea. He's got a hat with his daughter Oakley's name on the front. It's a nice, stylish looking hat. And the fundraiser, and Oakley's in a heart, like the name's inside a heart. And the fundraiser is basically a $15 hat. That's what it's cost, but he's added $100. So for $115, basically the $100 goes straight to the Children's Hospital Foundation, the Stollery Children's Hospital Foundation there in Edmonton. He's going to match it. His family's going to match dollar for dollar right up to a maximum of $5,000. So, here's a guy who, not looking to offset his bills or all the trouble he's gone through. He wants to make sure he pays it forward and thanks the staff and does something for the hospital foundation for other families that have to go through something like this in the future. So I loved it. I love the idea. I love the execution. If you're looking for a great looking hat and looking to help out there, make sure you check out his Twitter feed and DM him. Again, Kurtis with a K, Mucha, Mucha GC for goalie coach online, or just search Kurtis Mucha. We'll try and put something in the show notes too to help you find his Twitter account and help them raise some money for the Stollery Children's Hospital Foundation in Edmonton.
See, we come up with saves in all different varieties. on this podcast, don't we? Like that's an impressive save percentage, though, is Stollery Hospital.
Yeah, and like I said, maybe we're trying to come up with some ideas on ways that we can maybe add a prize here. But this really did come to our attention as we sat down to record this. So keep an eye on our social media too. We'll try and come up with something at Ingold to sort of help the cause as well.
Awesome. Really appreciate it. Well done, Kurtis. Good luck to Sebastien. Looking forward to that journey. I just want to hear more about his conversation with Ozzy. Going through that process, that would have been cool. And thanks to you, Hutch, for keeping this all together. We don't give you enough credit. Big backslap to Hutch for keeping us on the rails over the course of this project over at Ingold Magazine and Ingold Radio, the podcast. So I think you deserve all the accolades that you get through us, which is few and far
Not
between.
many.
We should
Not
do it
many.
more often.
Yeah, that's what I deserve is not many, what I get. Perfect. Couldn't do it without you, boys. It's a fun journey.
Hutch is our king. The king in the National Hockey League is Henrik Lundqvist hanging them up. What a marvelous run, and just doing it and innovative and making the saves and winning Olympic championships and being a Hall of Famer. And then, of course, we've got Woody, who's riding the board out in Tofino and making things happen on that regard. Get home safe, pal. Make sure you catch all the big waves, but be careful while you're doing it.
The big waves tend to result in me being a pile of, it's not pretty, but I'll catch as many little ones as I can for you guys.
Hey, you could probably get a haircut on your way through Nanaimo, too. There's lots of great places here in town.
No. Hold on. Listen, the hair... I'm in my element here. I am like in Surftown, Hippieville, Tofino. This is the first time, like, I've been here for a day and nobody's told me to get a haircut. I'm loving this. I may not come home, boys.
I'm thinking, in the spirit of Kurtis Mucha, maybe we can do something to fundraise by shaving or trimming Woody's head.
Shaving.
Like the more money we raise, we go from a 5 clipper to a 4, and the more money we raise, we go to a 2.
Oh, I like it.
A 1.
I like
it. There might be something there. Give us some feedback.
Woody, can you get your wife on here and we'll see how much she'd donate to get your hair shaved?
I don't know how much my wife would donate to if we did a fundraiser to get my hair cut, but I think her and my mother-in-law would donate an excessive amount to see that happen.
Wives always go with the silent game. Can we just play the silent game? I'll pay money for that one. Thanks to everybody for listening to, and if you've got some ideas for giving Woody a good little cleanup with the hair, let us know because we're always excited to hear from you. And Hutch does a great job sharing those, and we love the feedback and the little stories from the goaltending world. Congratulations, Hank. Good luck to Sebastien, and thanks for listening. New sets, new masks, all coming out to be unveiled in the next couple of weeks. So we're watching that on Ingold Radio, the podcast.